Hello everyone. I'm sorry I cannot be there in person. I'm in Germany. We have an automotive workshop in Stuttgart, hosted by a company called Bosch. They're one of our board members. And many of the large automotive companies around the world are coming together. Companies like, for example, Mercedes and Toyota and so on. The discussion we'll be having isn't just focused on making cars, it's on managing complex supply chains. So even though I'm not there in person, I hope that some of the outcomes from this meeting will be useful for our community in Korea, in Japan, in China, and beyond. Well, let's dive in. As usual, I want to give you a small update around what's going on in the project. The format is pretty predictable. We're going to go through some of the biggest news in the project, and then we'll continue with a few highlights of what's coming next. Now, there may be some new people in the audience, and in the slides I've prepared, I have created an overview for people who might be learning about OpenChain for the first time. Because many of you know the project well, I will not be going through the details of this overview in this talk. However, if you are new, you can scan this QR code and you'll go to a page where you can see all of those slides and read them at your own pace. What I'm going to do is jump straight into the news, and we have some interesting data points. The news during the summer months is always a little slower than usual, but we've been very fortunate to have some great announcements during what is for Europe and North America a holiday break period. So we've had a continued heartbeat of people saying they've adopted and using our standards. In Germany, IAV, a very large automotive supplier, not only announced that they're using ISO 5230, the international standard for open source license compliance, but they also created a case study, which is a really good example of how a company was thinking about and then using one of our standards. Also in Germany, a company that provides support services to the supply chain, DSpace, announced their adoption of 5230. Their work to adopt this standard was supported by a third-party certifier. So on the news item, you can find out more. Finally, and very exciting, not just in Korea, but everywhere, is Samsung SDS announcing adoption of ISO 18974, the international standard for open source security assurance. The adoption of this standard is a big step forward for both the standard itself and making trust greater in the supply chain. So, big congratulations to everyone in the Samsung SDS team. I hope you're in the audience today so people can shake your hand in person. Now, there are a few things happening right now or coming soon that you should be aware of. One that we've talked about before is the public comment period for proposed updates to ISO 5230 and ISO 18974. This does not mean we are in a hurry to update the standards, but it does mean we have a public comment period to review ideas and suggestions. The QR code will take you to all of the relevant information. Recently, we had some big releases of reference material. The second edition of our supplier education leaflet is in print-ready format, and of course the Telco SBOM quality guide also in PDF format. This means it's easy to print these documents and share them with everyone you want to. In recent months, since the start of this year, we've been running an AI study group, and our latest meeting in July brought together a lot of the ideas, and it looks like the AI study group is considering creating a guide about using AI in the supply chain. So talking about AI bill of material and how that could be managed. Recently, we also started an SBOM study group. The first meeting was in July, and this meeting focused on how SPDX Lite, a minimal format of software bill of materials for open source, would be continuing in the future in updates to the SPDX ISO standard as a whole. Later in September, the first of the regular meetings will be held, and we'll be looking at the Telco SBOM Quality Guide and talking about how that can work across multiple industries. It's certainly a study group to keep your eyes out for. The reference material I mentioned is stuff that we've already released. However, we have some exciting material under development. First of all, the training slides are currently being formatted for a large second generation release. We're up to chapter 5 of 8. You can find those in the GitHub. Our education workgroup has been creating explainers. For example, how do you explain to the C-level executives about OpenChain standards? How do you explain to the procurement department? These explainers are looking almost done and will probably come out next month. Now, as I mentioned in my introduction, we're having an automotive workshop in Stuttgart, Germany. And that's why I'm not there, but it's also why we might have some exciting new ideas, concepts, and guidance, as many of the companies dealing with very complex supply chains sit down and talk in detail about what's going on. In October, we have the Open Compliance Summit coming. This is probably the most important conference for people working in our field. It takes place in Tokyo, and it has an audience of 100 to an absolute maximum of 120. We have experts from all around the world coming this year. For example, Harold Velte will be giving the opening keynote. He's the person who created open source license compliance as we know it today through the gplviolations.org project. Heather Meeker will be another keynote speaker. You probably know her both from her work around open source and also her work with what some people refer to as post-open licenses, where we see companies experimenting with new concepts around licensing. Regardless of where people stand with regards how licenses are evolving and changing, Heather will be one of the key people to talk about, to talk to, and to talk with this development. We also have some technical experts like Armin Hemmel, a famous GPL violations engineer, who will be working with Oscar Venezuela from Amazon to do a super deep dive workshop. Well, why am I telling you all of this? Scan the QR code, go to the website, and check out the full schedule. I hope to see you there. During that event, we do expect to announce the first version of open source maturity modeling for risk management. This is going to be an interesting step forward regarding the type of reference material available to the community. You can track all of the OpenChain work, as always, with our calls and our mailing lists and our meetings. This QR code is really for the people who are new here. It'll take you to the participation page and help you get started. And finally, if you have questions about anything, OpenChain, our standards, certification, if you have questions about things like the Open Compliance Summit, or you want to know about maturity modeling, reach out to me anytime. Okay, everyone, once again, I'm sorry I could not be there in person, but I do hope you have a wonderful meeting. I want to send a big thanks to everyone working on collaborating today. A special big thanks to our sponsors, Etri and Hyundai Mobis. And that's it. I do plan to be at the next meeting. I do wish you well. Stay healthy, stay safe, and stay optimistic.